Which part it was in? I think it was in chapter 5 only, right? Genetics.
Yes.
Okay. So genetics, pedigree analysis, if I'm not wrong, right? Okay, Mendelian disorders, correct? This part.
Yes. So if
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
pedigree chart, if it's shown like one female affected and all other male affected, is it still sex-linked or autosomal?
Do you have the pedigree chart with you right now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's. Is there any way you can share it over the chat? Like you can attach it, or you can then. Otherwise, you have to dictate me, and I'll draw the chart. So you can start with.
I don't have the exact pedigree chart, but it's like.
Is it a question?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you dictate the question? Let's write the question first.
No, sir, I don't have the question right now.
Okay, so how will you remember? Like, should I go with how do we actually analyze a sex-linked disease?
Yes.
Okay, so sex-linked disorder. Basically, we're talking about the Mendelian, the disorders that follow the Mendelian inheritance. Okay. Now let's say you know that this is a male, this is a female, right? And this is the parental generation. Okay.
Yes.
And they had, for example, let's say 1, 2, 3, and 4 kids. So can you tell me about, so what do we understand from this pedigree till now?
They have 2 sons and 2 daughters.
Correct. Now let's say if a disorder is sex-linked. So most of the time when it is sex-linked, it is on X chromosome. Okay, mostly. Why it is, that's why sex-linked are also known as the X-linked disorders. If a disorder hypothetically is sex-linked, it can also be on Y chromosome, because Y is also a sex chromosome, but Y chromosome is the smallest chromosome, containing just somewhere around some hundreds of genes, that's all. And out of those also, less than that is actually responsible for male sex characters. So most of the time it is on the X chromosome, correct?
Yes.
All the ones that you have in your syllabus or that we are going to study mostly are X-linked disorders. So if it is X-linked, we know that males are XY and females are XX, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So now let me, for the sake of simplicity, write father's X as green and mother's X as red. Okay, that you understand. Now, in these progeny, can you tell me what will be the genotype of this female? XX, but one X will come from father and the other X will come from mother, correct?
Yes.
For the boys, the Y come from father and X still comes from mother. Same will be here, correct? I'm just color coding it so that you know that it's from different parents, that's all. So this will be the genotype, how it will look, correct? The sex chromosomes. So this is the father and this is the mother. Now, if a disorder is sex-linked, which means the mutation the genetic disorder is on the X chromosome. Okay. Now, whether a disorder, so you know that disorders are of two types. Any trait is of two types, recessive and dominant, correct? Rifat?
Yes.
What are recessive disorders? What are recessive disorders? Those disorders which needs both the copies there. They have to be in a recessive form. So they can only be expressed if X is affected and the other X is also affected, right?
Yes.
So in a dominant disorder, we are talking just in terms of X chromosome right now. And you know that this is a genotype of a female, right? So in a female, there can be a recessive disorder or there can be a dominant disorder where if only one X is affected and the other X is normal, N, then still this disease will take place. But if a disorder is recessive, then a female with one affected A, one affected X and other normal N will be a carrier, right? A carrier for recessive sex-linked disorder. You know why? Because it has one copy which is normal, correct?
Yes.
But only in the case of a recessive. So females with this genotype can be recessive, and recessive females do not show any symptoms, right? So no symptoms. So you look at the female and you will not know that the female is carrying the gene for any disease. Only, so let's say this is that female, and this female is having one of the X is affected, which I'll write at X prime, and the other is normal. Okay, or let me write A only. So one is affected, one is normal. For the father, let's say this is normal. Okay, why we are not considering? That's why it's sex linked. Now, when this female will give this female with which is a carrier female, right? So she's a carrier. Let's say this disease is recessive and she's a carrier. If it is a dominant disease, then it does not matter. Even one copy will cause disorder. So this female itself will be diseased. Okay.
Yes.
And then half of so whatever child it will give this affected X will be diseased again. So for dominant disorders, it's very simple. So if this is XA and then this is AN, okay. From father, everyone got a normal X. So if it is a dominant sex-linked disorder, so who all will be affected? First, this female will be affected, mother will be affected. This daughter will also be affected because it's a dominant sex-linked disorder. And anyone else? Rifat?
The son.
Which son? First born, second born?
Third born.
Third born son, right?
Yes.
He will also be affected. Correct?
Yes.
And all others will be normal for a X-linked dominant disorder. This is how we, and so for dominant X-linked, it's all gone. If you have one copy, problematic, you're gone. Simple. But the problem is to identify a recessive sex-linked disorder. So in a recessive sex-linked disorder, if the mother, let's start with this condition. If the mother has both copies affected, then the mother is diseased, affected, right?
Yes.
in this case, the scenario will change a little. All the eggs that the mother will give, all the red ones will be affected eggs, whether it goes to the daughter or it goes to the son. And all the eggs that father will give will be a normal one, whether it goes to the daughter and it goes to the son. Now tell me, Arifat will tell me, this is a sex-linked recessive disorder. Sex-linked recessive. Who all will be affected? Whom all should I color black?
Both the male.
Both the males. Okay. And that's it. The mother.
Yes.
Yeah. So this will be the case for sex-linked recessive. If the mother is affected, is diseased, which is homozygous recessive mother, will always give all the sons the disease. But do you pay attention here that mother needed 2 copies defected to be diseased because it's recessive? Then why are you saying that a son with only 1 copy affected can be diseased?
Because he has only 1 X chromosome.
Exactly. Now, just remember this point, okay? Now let me change the situation a bit. Mother is carrier. Now, how will situation change? Tell me. Mother is carrier. Let's say, and let me say if this is the situation. To one daughter, she gave an affected one. To one son, she gave an affected one. To one other son, she gave a normal one. To other daughter, she gave a normal one. Now, who all will be diseased? Whom should I color black? And also tell who all are carriers. Whom should I color half?
The first daughter is a carrier.
Who's? First of all, the mother is a.
Yeah.
Always start with the mother. Don't directly look at the kids, okay? So this is F1. You have to start with parents. Father will be a carrier? No, because the father is normal. Mother will be a carrier, right?
Yes.
So half. Okay. This daughter
is a carrier.
Is a carrier. So half. This son
Is affected.
Is affected, you say. Okay. This son
Is normal.
Normal. And this daughter?
Normal.
Normal. So in this case, where the female is a carrier, not at all showing any symptoms, still the son, half of the son are affected, right?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because the X chromosome is affected.
And males have only 1 X chromosome.
Yes.
So males are either normal. So in last case where the mother was affected, all the males were affected, right? Regardless, because if mother has both the chromosomes affected, then it is 100% sure that she will give at least 1 X chromosome to every son, right? Because fathers will only give Y to the son. So if both the X chromosomes of mother are affected and it is a dominant recessive disorder, then every male has to be affected in that family. Correct?
Yes.
But if the mother is carrier for a recessive disorder, then half of the sons will be affected again. So males either are affected or are normal. Males can never be carrier for a X-linked disorder. This is the first rule. Is that clear?
Yes.
So how the way you just figured out that which will be the carrier, which will be the affected one, you have to follow the same rule for sex-linked disorders. Okay, it is on X chromosome. And if they say that Let me give you one more question, okay? Oh, sorry, I should not have done that. I just need to delete this. Again, following the same rule, I will just give you the genotype for the kids, okay? And you have to tell me what will be the phenotype of the parents. So N is for normal, A is for affected. This is our rule, okay? Clear, Rifat?
Yes.
So let's say this son is normal. This daughter is affected, and normal. Okay, so this is the genotype of the F1 generation, all the kids. Cool?
Yes.
And she is diseased. The boys are normal. And she is a carrier. Now tell me the genotypes of the parents in terms of XA and XN, X affected and X normal.
The father is affected.
Father is affected, you say? Okay.
And the mother is a carrier.
And the mother is a carrier.
Yes.
So one affected and one normal, you say. And why is that? Why do you say this, that the mother is carrier?
Because the X chromosome, the first daughter got, is affected.
So both the X of the first daughter are affected. So it means that she must have got X from mother also,
yes,
which is at least one affected. So this is a carrier. This is correct. Now let me add one last complexity and then you are done with this concept. You have understood it. I suppose I don't tell anything about the genotype. Just in words, I am giving you these options. So it is a sex-linked recessive disorder where one son is affected with the disorder and one daughter is affected with the disorder. Okay. Now you have to tell me what was the genotype of the progenies and what was the genotype of the parents. It's a sex-linked recessive disorder. One son is affected and one daughter is affected. So this is the kid 1, 2, 3, 4 parents, mother and father. Tell me, Rifat.
The mother will be a carrier.
So you're saying the mother is a carrier, which means XAXN. Okay. Father?
Sir, is the daughter affected?
Sorry?
The fourth child, is she affected?
Yeah, the fourth child is affected.
Then the father is affected.
Tell the genotype. XAY. Okay. And what are the genotypes of the 4 kids?
The first daughter is normal. XN.
XN.
The second son is affected. XAY.
Okay.
The third son is normal. XNY. And the daughter is affected. XN. XA.
Cool.
Yes.
Correct. You understood it. You have any more doubts?
No, sir.
Is it clear or you have
Yes, I understand. Thank you, sir.
confident?
Yes.
Very good. Great. Okay, anyone else? Any other doubts? Yes, no? No one has a doubt? Okay, then let's go to current chapter that we are doing. Yeah. So where did we start in the last class? I think we did the patterns of biodiversity, right? Okay, correct. So on patterns of biodiversity, anyone would like to just give a quick summary just for the patterns of biodiversity? Quick summary, people. Anyone? About Hiba? Am I audible, Hiba? Hello? Hello? Is it my internet or am I audible, people? Yes, Hiba,
Yes,
I
sir.
can. Okay, I think Hiba tried to speak. Yes, Hiba, would you like to give a quick summary of patterns of biodiversity? I cannot hear you if you're speaking. Okay, I don't think she can hear me. Okay, Atif, would you like to do this? You there, Atif?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, quick summary of patterns of biodiversity.
Okay, sir. So
Yeah.
we learned about two main patterns of biodiversity, that is the latitudinal gradient and the species area relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah, so first we learned about the latitudinal gradient, like how the biodiversity varies by latitude. We saw that tropic region has more biodiversity. Then
Correct.
we also saw like why they have greater biodiversity as compared to time. One result is due to speciation. Due to the large amount of time provided, it leads to biodiversity. We saw that speciation is a function of time. Then
Well,
we also
the
saw
question
that,
was why tropic region has more biodiversity.
yes, sir.
Yeah, because one reason is you like that tropic regions remained undisturbed. Correct? Yes. Continue. Sorry.
Yes. So the other reason is that tropic regions have remained undisturbed for millions of years. Due to this, higher speciation events and greater species diversity was possible.
Yeah, you would also like to add a few points to this. So everyone just add a few points here. Other reasons for tropics having higher biodiversity. Second reason is that the tropical environment, write down, the tropical environment has less seasonal fluctuation. The tropical environment has less seasonal fluctuation. And is more constant and predictable. Tropical environment is more constant and predictable. Okay, so write down such environments promote niche specialization. NICHE, niche specialization. So the environment is constant and also less fluctuating. It will not just give time, it will also provide organisms to develop their niche. And this leads to greater species diversity. And this leads to greater species diversity. Okay. So these two are the major direct factors that allow greater biodiversity in the tropical region. Another, you can say that because tropical region is so comfortable for growth conditions of both plants and animals, it allows higher productivity. Okay, so in general, the productivity of the ecosystem about which we studied, right? We studied productivity, remember? Productivity, decomposition, gross productivity, net productivity. Remember that, people?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So overall, the gross and the net productivity in tropical ecosystems is higher. So this can indirectly, because if there is more productivity, there is more food available, so more species will eat it and there will be more diversity. It's not a direct way to say, because sometimes when you provide more food, one kind of species can have just too many individuals. That is also possible. But indirectly, it also promotes diversity. Okay. So that's an indirect region, but just to add this. Yes, Atif, continue. Are you there, Atif? Am I audible, people? Atif, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Okay, I don't think Atif can hear me very well. Okay, anyone else who would like to take from here? Rifat? Would like to talk about the species area relationship? Shaheen?
So I was absent last class.
Okay, I think Atif is rejoining back. Yes, can you hear us? Can you hear me, Atif?
Yes, sir, now I can.
Yeah, okay. Continue. So I thought we lost you.
Yes, sir. So next we learned about the species area relationship. So German naturalist Alexander Humboldt, he showed that species richness increases with increased area of exploration, but there is a limit for that. So this can be shown to a graph. So from the graph, we can see that species richness rises, but at a point it becomes constant. And so and this graph can be represented in the formula S is equal to CA raised to Z, where S is the species richness, C is the y-intercept, A is the area, and Z is the slope of the line. And then if you take the log of all of these values, then it is seen that the graph is a straight line.
Correct. So this is called linearization of the graph. So we are just linearizing the graph so that we can study the slope of the graph. In this case, as I told you, as you keep going forward, the slope is different. So from this part to this part, there is a different slope. Here the slope becomes different. Here the slope becomes different. And here it is same to the, almost same to the x-axis. Do you understand?
Yes,
So
sir.
when we will linearize, it will be a single one slope. Yes. And this z is actually the slope of the line only. Okay. So this means that if you have more species richness per unit area, the graph is going to be, or the slope is going to be steeper, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I think this is where we end, and I ask you to read how do we conserve biodiversity. So that's the last part of this chapter. If you have studied, you can tell me. So, so there are two things that you have to study. First, the causes of biodiversity loss. So let's spend some time there and finish the chapter today. First, we are going to talk about causes of biodiversity loss. Okay, so what do you think are the causes? We agree that we are losing biodiversity, but what are the causes? So there are majorly four major causes which are attributed to the global biodiversity loss. First is habitat loss for organisms. Either there is loss of habitat or there is fragmentation of habitat. Okay, am I audible, people? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So habitat loss or fragmentation. So what does this mean? This means simply that humans are cutting down forests. So the forest cover is decreasing. And why are we cutting down forests? Decreasing forest cover. So this will lead to loss of habitat for many organisms. And this is being done to expand cities, towns, and agricultural fields. Okay. And because of this, the another thing is we are fragmenting. We are breaking apart connected large habitats. For example, there's a big forest chunk, and due to human activities, in between, in the middle of the forest, you have some highway project or some other kind of project, some agricultural project, because of which the forest got fragmented into two parts or more than two parts. Okay. Sometimes there are highways going through the forest, rail networks, all of this. Okay. So because of which these habitats get fragmented, and then over time they become smaller and smaller. And especially because of this, mammals and birds which need large territories to survive. For example, tigers. So the tiger population needs a very large territory to flourish and survive. You cannot conserve lots of tiger in a limited space. Okay, they have territorial behaviors. So they are territorial organisms. They fight for territories. One male will not allow other male to be in its territory, and so on, so forth. And also large birds that migrate from one place to another, they also need very large areas to survive and live. So fragmenting the habitats affects them badly, especially the large mammals and birds. Is that clear, people? The first cause?
Yes, sir.
The second is overexploitation. So when we overexploit resources which are available to us, and we try to, what do you say? For example, the best example for overexploitation due to which we are losing a lot of biodiversity is fishing, extensive fishing, and also extensive farming. Extensive agriculture is leaving the lands more and more infertile and barren over time because we are just overexploiting the limit or the capacity of that piece of land. So with fisheries, what we do is, so we know that there are around 28 to 30,000 fish species that we have figured out till now. Not all are important economically to us, and very few, in fact, are edible and we fish them for a food source. Okay, that can be canned or bought, what do you say, packed food source or live food source. So overexploitation happens when at any particular area, the fishing is so extensive that you do not allow the fish population to repopulate or come back before you fish the next, right? So that will lead to biodiversity loss because in aquatic systems, as we know that food chains are connected. It's not like one fish is a standalone exclusive species just available for us to hunt and eat. So very few numbers of that species can also affect other species with which it has a relationship. And due to that, the whole biodiversity is affected. You know, that particular species is affected directly, and there are other effects through that to other species and other organisms as well. So suppose one fish species is gone, and that was keeping another crustacean species or shrimp in check and balance. And if they are gone, the shrimp species or other kind of crustaceans will start rising in that region. Okay, so they will, because there is no, the predators that feed on them are very less, etc. So you can write down. Many marine fish species, fish in the ocean, many marine fish species are overexploited around the world. Around the world. And this has endangered the existence of these species. Okay. Any doubts, people? The third reason is, as I already talked in the context of fish, is coextinctions. Coextinctions. Just like cooperation, co-ed, education, co-ed, co-education, co means together. So coextinctions happens when, due to the direct effects of our activities or any factor, one species is gets extinct, but it has a relationship, especially kind of a mutualistic or an obligatory relationship with another species. So that also become extinct, or chances of that becoming extinct is very high. So co-extinctions also lead to collapse of biodiversity faster, and it also leads to loss of biodiversity on a large scale. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you can write down, when one species become extinct, when one species become extinct, it leads to the extinction of a associated species, of an associated species. In an obligatory manner. Okay, for example, interactions, we have studied population interactions, remember? In last chapter we studied about population interactions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there you studied that mutualistic relationships or commensalism relationships give advantage, or parasitism or predator relationships, they give advantage to one species because of the presence of the other, right? One or both. So in all these interactions, if the species which gets the advantage, so the species that gives the advantage to the other species, if that is lost, the species that gets the advantage also will be severely affected and might die out. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's called co-extinction. It has led to a lot of biodiversity loss. And for this, we have to understand the dynamics of any species before, so like hunting it or before deciding to exploit it for our benefit. To which extent we can exploit any species of plant and animal, that has to be taken into consideration, keeping in mind its interaction with other components of the ecosystem. The fourth reason is when alien species or foreign species invade. So alien species or a foreign species invasion. These invasions have happened multiple times, some unintentionally, some intentionally. So alien species invasion means when any foreign species is introduced, either unintentionally or intentionally, for any purpose, into a different habitat or a different ecosystem. Okay, so there are two things that can happen. One, the species which is the alien species, we are calling it alien because it's coming from a foreign ecosystem, that might not do good in the new ecosystem. It might do okay, well, and merge and gel up with the ecosystem. And third possibility is it might take over the ecosystem and cause negative effects on the ecosystem. So that's called invasion. Okay? So many a times it has happened that some examples are, the most common example is water hyacinth. Okay, so water hyacinth is an aquatic plant, and it was introduced to the lakes of Bengal by British. Okay, because for its beauty and ornamental value. So they wanted to make the lakes look prettier, beautiful, like they are in the temperate regions in the British and the Europe. But water hyacinth in these tropical conditions in Indian lakes started growing without any check, and it took over the whole lake. And because of which the species that used to live in the water, that whole ecosystem suffered a lot, and it suffered loss of food, oxygen, and died. Okay, so that's why people started calling it the Bengal terror. Okay, lot of important fish species were lost because of the introduction of this water hyacinth plant. Okay, so it's known as Bengal terror in ecosystem. What? Another example is your African catfish in case of animals. So African catfish were deliberately again introduced into the Indian freshwater system. Okay, because people used to like these catfish for aquaculture purposes, like to keep it in aquarium or to culture it for other purposes like food, etc. So this started posing a threat to the existing catfishes in Indian rivers because they were more fierce, bigger, and they outcompeted all other catfish in our Indian rivers, and their population started declining. Okay, so African catfish is another example. So these two were deliberate introductions. And one more example, you must have heard of carrot grass. This we did not do deliberately, but it just happened. Carrot grass is called Parthenium. Have you heard of this, carrot grass or Parthenium? Yes, no? Carrot grass. Okay, so if you'll go to any public park or garden in India, especially the northern and the central part of India, you will find that carrot grass will be there. It competes with normal grasses, lawn grasses, and it just grows everywhere. So it's like very invasive. But how did carrot grass? It came from like the American soil, and it came with the wheat. So in the 60s and 70s, or maybe in the 80s, I'm not sure. In the 60s and 70s, mostly India used to import wheat. Okay, because India was not producing enough wheat to feed the people, so it started importing wheat from countries, American countries, and as a result, Parthenium came with the wheat. Parthenium seeds on the Parthenium grass came with that, and it started invading. It became very invasive to our crop fields. Okay, and since then, it is a very, very invasive species which is present everywhere. So that's a what you say, unintentional case of alien species invading a already flourishing ecosystem and affecting it. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so these four reasons are the major reasons for biodiversity loss. And now, as we know that there is biodiversity loss, we have to conserve biodiversity, correct? So first is why? So there are two questions whenever, so we come to the next part or the last part of the chapter with this, which is biodiversity conservation. Biodiversity conservation. Now there are two questions. First, why? We know that organisms are dying. We are losing biodiversity. Apart from just, but humans do not very much come in the, you can say that we can produce our own crops. We can do agriculture, so we don't have to worry about food. We can also take care of our medicines. We have science and technology. We can develop our medicines, so we don't have to care about medicinal herbs or plants for that matter. We will do research and figure out things. If we need a molecule or a new drug, we will just design it through drug designing. We can produce things. We are good. We are capable of existing in space. Even if we are losing biodiversity, why to bother? Let's take care of the human species. Let's take care of ourselves. Let's not worry about a butterfly species dying in the Amazon, or a cat species or a catfish dying in this river. Let's worry about us. So first question comes, why? And if you are convinced that yes, there is some reasons for which we have to conserve it, then comes how. Correct? So first let's focus on why. Why do you think we have to conserve biodiversity? This is discussion based, people. If this question comes, it will be a bounty question, because you can write it, it's like good questions that you should always attempt, and you get good marks, almost full marks. So why conserve biodiversity? No idea?
To preserve species. Yes.
But why would we like to preserve species? That's what I'm saying. It's the same question. Why conserving biodiversity means preserving species. That is the question. Why preserve species? Why to worry about? So it's not like we have not seen loss of species. There were previous species on planet like dinosaurs. No one conserved them. They are dead, but the earth is doing good. We are doing great. Right? So why to conserve? Maybe they will die, some other species will come. Why do we need to bother at all? That's the question. Yes, Shaheen.
To maintain economic stability.
Yes. This is a good point. So this is a humanitarian point. Maintain economic stability. Would you like to just elaborate on it a little? What do you mean by maintain economic stability? How do conserving biodiversity helps us to maintain economical stability? Come on, it's a good point, but what do you mean by that point? Is it something that you just read in the notes and you don't understand? Then it's unfortunate, because you have to.
It just came in my mind out of nowhere.
Okay, but it's a good point that came to your mind, but there should be some reason. Now, if you think now, you are right. So either you are correct or you are wrong. So I'm saying that you are correct. Now, can you think that how can conserving a bunch of butterflies, a bunch of plants here and there, a dog, a cat, pigeon, birds, will help us get economic stability? Are we going to conserve them, then sell them to get more money? No. Why are we conserving them? The answer for why could only be that, see, human depends on it. That's the only reason, right? Major reason. So let me take this. So whenever this question of why conserve biodiversity comes, there are three arguments that are given in its favor. The first argument is called the narrow utility argument. narrow utility or narrowly utilitarian argument. The second is broad utilitarian argument. And then third, because we are humans, we have some, moral principles, ethics. So third is the ethical argument. Okay. Now, what are these three arguments to conserve biodiversity? The narrow utility argument says that you need to conserve biodiversity because, like, this point was raised that maybe our economy depends on it. Then the question is how? Tell me, how do you think our economy depends on it? So you can say that there are many economic benefits that humanity has from the nature. Direct economic benefits that we have. And what are those benefits about? That's about food. We get our food, like fruits, some component of food directly from nature, pulses, fruits, etc. We get fuel from nature, right? We get wood from nature. We get fiber from nature, like cotton, wool, correct? We also get a lot of industrial substances like resins, tannins. These are all chemicals. We get lubricant and dyes, correct? These all we get from nature. So we have a lot of economical benefit if we protect the nature, conserve the nature in its full glory. So we will have lots of option of resin plants, of some butterflies, which from whose cocoon you get the silk, right? As a fiber, you will conserve some big trees to get wood. You will conserve some other trees to get tannins and resins. You will conserve some animals to get lubricants and fats. It's okay. So you conserve, and as your demand is there, you just raise them and then exploit them. So that's the narrow utilitarian argument. Okay. It also includes that, let me just tell you that all the medicines that we currently have in the market, most of the medicines that are available to us, around 1/4 of those medicinal drugs available in the market depends on plants and plant and extracts. So that also comes under your narrow utility argument for the conservation of nature. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then as your broad utilitarian argument, because narrow utility argument can still be, counter argued that, okay, if you are saying wood, let's not use wood. We have made synthetic materials which are as durable as wood, so we will, if we do not, we will not use wood anymore. We are good without wood. It's fine. We will have supplements instead of, getting vitamins and proteins from fruits or pulses. Fibers, we have also created synthetic fibers like rayon, nylon. So no need to worry about cotton and wool all the time. We can make artificial dyes. We can also make artificial resins, lubricants, tannins, perfumes. These are all chemicals which can be created. We will look for other alternatives of medicine if plants are gone. No problem. And someone will say that, okay, if you don't want to worry about the narrow utility argument, conserving nature also has a broad utilitarian argument. So broad means which you cannot find an alternative for. For example, in the broad utilitarian argument comes things for which you have to conserve biodiversity, because nature also provides us with major ecosystem services, okay, which there are no alternatives of as of yet. First is oxygen level on the planet, right? Who maintains the oxygen levels of the planet? Plants. Amazon rainforests alone are so huge that they contribute to around 20% of total oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere alone. So that's why they are called lungs of the Earth. It's a big continent spanning rainforest. It is so huge that till date, it has not been completely explored. Okay. And it is so huge that it's been exploited and trees are being cut on a very, very large scale, but still it's there. Okay. But it's getting severely affected. That's the point. And if you lose a lot of trees, a lot of plants, a lot of forest cover, then you will have issues with breathing. Now, you cannot survive without breathing. Maybe you can survive without using natural fibers, wearing just artificial fibers. You can survive without natural lubricants, dyes, perfumes. But you cannot survive without oxygen, correct? So that is one broad utilitarian argument for which we have to conserve nature. And oxygen is such a thing that everyone realized the value of it, especially during this COVID in last 2-3 years, correct?
Yes.
So oxygen in hospitals are so vital. We have realized that at one point of time, it was costlier than gold, like more important than gold to people. People were looking desperately for oxygen cylinders. And this oxygen is produced and pumped into the atmosphere by plants through the process of photosynthesis. So we need that. Second argument is pollination on a global level. Pollination of our food, of our crops, and all the angiosperms that are important to us, not just flowers, but also fruits. So pollination. We cannot survive without pollination, because whatever we grow, we just sow the seeds, right? Humans just put the seeds in the soil, give nutrient to the seed, then give water to the seed. That's all we do. When they grow, the plants grow up. The plant produce flowers. Those flowers have pollens, which needs to reach to the ovules. How does that happen? That happens through pollination. So there are major pollinators, which are the major pollinators? Insects. And you're correct, such as bees, right? Bumblebees, even bats and birds. Bees, bumblebees, bats, and birds. They're all major pollinators, without which whom this whole productivity on the planet will go down. Okay. So this is another broader region to conserve. Then in the end comes the ethical arguments. Now, ethical arguments are there because we are humans and we are cultural, social beings, and philosophically and spiritually also we have to realize that conserving and saving species have its own value, moral value. Even if conserving some species does not have a financial value or economical value, it has a moral value, because every living system deserves to live unharmed on the planet. So that's some moral values that every culture imbibes. No culture, no religion, no methods of human society says that just go and keep killing even insects or birds or animals just for fun. or just without any reason, right? There always have to be reason, even if you are killing another life. Either it's for food, because in nature the rule is a life takes another life to live. For that matter, higher organisms like humans always depend on other organisms, living organisms, as food. Whether we eat plants or whether we eat animals, all of them are living cells, because living cell need those things which are present inside living cells. Okay, vital vitamins and nutrients. So, but the ethical argument says that we have a moral duty as Homo sapiens to take care and to conserve the biological legacy, as you say, okay, to the future generations. Okay, so our future generations should know, they should get to see all of this that we are seeing. It should not be the case that we are only showing our future generations a kind of birds just in books and pictures, because we over exploited, we made their habitat, made them lose their habitats, fragmented their habitats, and now they are extinct. So ethically and morally, we are not doing good to the future generations also. So is the ethical argument understood? It talks about the moral obligations of humans to conserve biodiversity. Okay. Make sense, people?
Yes, sir.
So now if you're convinced that, okay, the why makes sense, now let's talk about how, which is the last part of this chapter. So how are we going to conserve biodiversity? We were talking about the point here. Okay. So I'll just go up here and tell you. So to conserve biodiversity, there are many kind of efforts that people put in. And all these efforts can be divided into two parts. One is in situ conservation, which is also known as on-site conservation, and ex situ conservation, which is off-site conservation. Now, what does in situ means and what does ex situ mean? So all of you have NCERT right now. Let's do a quick activity for this part. You have NCERT, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. So Shaheen and Atif. So come to page number. Let me figure out the page. Come back to page number 266. Yes. Quickly come to page number 266 of your NCERT. Everyone. Can you see there are in situ conservation and ex situ conservation methods mentioned there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I would like you all to read first the in situ conservation method, this paragraph quickly. Okay, so I think we have, yes, we have 10 minutes. So so I'll give you 4 minutes to read this paragraph. Just read and just mark the important points. Not more than 4. You do not need to write more than 4 points for anything. Okay, so 4 points, very important, that you want to mark for in situ, and then we will do for ex situ. And your time starts now. You have exactly 4 minutes. Okay, everyone? Are you doing it? Atif, Fatima, Heba, Rifat, Shaheen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. This portion I gave you as a homework, so I'm just Okay, done everyone? Shaheen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, done? Did you read
Yes.
the in situ conservation paragraph?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So, so tell me, what are the four most important sentences that you find we should know about in situ conservation? First, as I told you, let me tell you, it is in situ conservation is the type of conservation where whatever you want to conserve, you have to conserve it right where it is. Suppose you want to conserve tigers, then you have to conserve tigers in their natural habitat, and for that you have to make tiger reserves, okay, or wildlife sanctuaries. So that kind of thing is called in situ. So in situ conservation, we are not just conserving the component, but everything associated with it in the ecosystem. So what are the 4 points that you think we should know and for exams about in situ conservation? Shaheen.
I did highlight the point which you just said now. And with that, on a global basis, this problem has been addressed by eminent conservationists. They identified for maximum protection certain biodiversity hotspots, region with very high levels of species richness and high degree of endemism, that is species confined to that region and not found anywhere else. 3 of these hotspots are Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma and Himalaya, cover
Correct.
our country's exceptionally high diversity regions.
Yeah, but this is almost all of those paragraphs. That doesn't make the work easier,
No,
right?
no. From anything else, then I went to that 3 hotspots.
Okay, so you will mention about the hotspots. What if I say that first thing you say that what is in situ conservation? So it is to conserve all the components of a hotspot right where it is on the site. That's why it's called on-site conservation. First point. Second point, there are many hotspots, like you said that some hotspots like Western Ghats, Indo-Burma region, Himalayas, they have very high biodiversity regions. Okay. And then you talk about how to do it. So to do it, you have to make biosphere reserves, national parks, and sanctuaries. These 3 methods are for in situ conservation. And just opposite to these 3 or 4 points, so such regions are called sacred groves, where the indigenous people or the native people also help the authorities in this work. Okay, this is how in situ conservation is done. For ex situ conservation, it's completely opposite. So this is done where some organism or species is so critical in the wild that you are sure that if we leave it in the wild, it won't survive, or it is already endangered or about to get extinct in the wild. So you cannot conserve it in the wild anymore. So for that, you can take that out of its ecosystem and conserve it in a separate, very protected environment like zoological parks. So reserves, sanctuaries, national parks are for in situ. Zoological parks, or wildlife safari parks, or what else?
Botanical garden.
Botanical gardens or animal enclosures. These are for ex situ conservation. In ex situ conservation, now there are other methods also used. For example, which was used in the case of this white northern rhinoceros. So the last male of the species died in around 2022, if I'm not wrong, 2022 or 2021. And what scientists did, they preserved that male's sperm before it died, in the hope that still there are few females of that species which are alive, but they are still very young. So when they will be of the age of reproduction, they will try doing IVF and implant it back into the wombs. And if it works, we can maybe revive the population to some extent. So that is also called ex situ conservation techniques. Make sense, people?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So these points you should write. And with this, we come to end of this chapter. And now we have just one last chapter left. But that chapter is deleted, right? Chapter 16 is deleted from board syllabus. Am I correct? Anyone who's board, like anyone who has a different board and that chapter is still a part of the syllabus? So that majorly that chapter is, it talks about like the chapter that has been deleted. It mostly talked about issues like policies and environmental issues. So it won't be asked in the boards, but chances are there are some components of it that are still important for entrances and to understand some concepts better. So in the next class, we will talk about some of those concepts. Okay. And please come with your doubts, majorly whatever your doubts are with any chapter of the syllabus, we will do that. Okay. So let's end here.
Sir?
Today's class. Yes.
So will you also do chapter 9?
We'll do chapter 9. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You want me to do chapter 9?
Yes, because for needs.
These are, yeah, for the food production, right?
Yes.
The part that was, yeah, plant breeding and single cell protein structures, tissue culture. Yes, we will do that for NEET purposes. So we will discuss the deleted chapters and their important parts in the next class. Okay. Just for the entrance.